We're Arts and Adventure Summits the Airwaves. This is the Ogden Arts and Adventure Show. I am R. Brandon Long, along with...
Oh, shit, I jumped the gun. Todd Oberndorfer. That's all right, keep it.
That's all right. We're your hosts for the greatest podcast in all the land. This week's guest is so famous and so popular, we just have him. That's it.
Wow. What an introduction.
Yeah. Yep. So Oka, artist in residence, muralist, resident. Is it plural?
Artist in residence.
In residence.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you would like pluralize the artist or artists, I think.
Artist and artists, but the residence.
So artist in residence,
okay. Say the same. Eric Garcia.
All right, I'm going to jump in.
Yay!
Oh, I'm sorry. Do the little fanfare. Fanfare. I don't want to jump.
Oh, well.
You deserve all of it.
Yeah, I do have it somewhere. There we go.
Okay, thanks.
You guys got sound effects.
And yeah, did you catch that? Yeah. So,
yeah.
There's a great bio on your website, so I'm going to read that. If I didn't bring my reading glasses, but I think I can get this. Eric J Garcia. What's the J for?
Jason.
Eric Jason Garcia. Uses history.
There's so many Eric Garcias out there, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, so is that why you use the J?
Do you remember the old television show Chips with Eric Estrada?
Yes.
Yeah.
When that came out, all the Latina moms wanted to name their sons Eric. So
because Estrada was like all that in a bag of chips.
Right. There's 1,000 Eric Garcias out there. So I always put it's a branding thing. J.
I'm more than happy to talk about chips the rest of the hour. I've gone through spells. In fact, me and my dad have bonded over chips. Like back when there was a whole spell. I want to say he was taking a break between jobs. Let's just say. Yeah, he was on a sabbatical.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so he was home for a bit. I was home for a bit. And there was a whole stretch where we watched. And this was before streaming services. So it was just certain times of the day. And they would
you have VHS?
Well, yeah, but I think it was on television, but I think it was on syndication.
Okay.
And sometimes even back then, they would run like a whole afternoon of back-to-back Chips episodes. Yeah. And so I totally got into Chips. Chips is, I want to say it doesn't hold up quite as well right now, but it's a great series that they haven't managed to or decided not to reboot.
Did you want to be a police officer at any time watching Chips?
I don't think so. I don't think that was the angle I was going after. Okay. But that was around the time period you started to find out what you want to be when you grow up is watching those programs.
Yeah.
Because I remember being, you know what, I was inspired mostly by it, and it was probably around that same time was, you remember Fantasy Island?
Oh,
Fantasy Island, right?
Yeah.
And so
you wanted to be rich.
Was
Ricardo Montalban,
But it was the island. It was the island part, and the idea of making your wishes come true.
You kind of did that too. You and I
guess I kind of did.
Exotic places.
Yeah, that's what Eric does now. You're back to back. You guys are gypsies, you and your family, and so a little bit of Fantasy Island. But then you know what it is now is that on streaming, particularly some of the lesser streaming services like Pluto. I don't know if you guys know Pluto.
Lesser.
Yeah, some of these are they're free with it, so you get a lot of commercials. You know,
you buy a TV, you just get some of these.
I think it's included with those, but there's one called Pluto, and Pluto, I think it's Pluto, but they have all those old series, right? And so I've got into. What was I watching the other day? Love Boat. I was watching a lot of Love Boats. I like to sometimes keep the TV on when I'm gone for the animals, right? And so sometimes I'll put those on and it
for the animals.
And it just plays when I'm not home, you know. So Love Boat is a great one. Gilligan's Island, that was on for a little bit. It's just sort of catching those. And then of course and we're going a little bit more modern on this one, but my favorite, if I ever catch it, is MacGyver. So any of the MacGyvers.
Yeah.
MacGyver's is still one of my favorite series of all times. So what were we talking about? Chips. All right, so
Eric J. Garcia.
So Eric Jason Garcia uses history and a graphic style to create political art that confronts our understanding of the present, using sculpture, mixed media installations, murals, printmaking. Did you write this? Did you have somebody write this? Did Amanda write this?
My wife, of course.
Yeah. Which is very good. This is very good. Murals, printmaking, and his controversial political cartoons. He aims to challenge his viewers to question sources of power and the whitewashing of history. After receiving his BFA with a minor in Chicano Studies from the University of New Mexico, Eric Garcia went on to complete, this is longer than I thought it was, his MFA at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He is a core member of the printmaking collective.
Oh, he's your brother.
What?
Printmaking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got the printmaking.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to mispronounce. Instituto.
Grafico de Chicago.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome group. One of the newest members of the Just Seeds Cooperative, which I'm familiar with the work that they do, a part of the emerging veteran art movement, and is dedicated teaching artist. Garcia has exhibited nationally, and his work can be found on the collections of the National Museum of Mexican Art, the National Hispanic Cultural Center, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Welcome to the show. Thanks for finding time for us.
Thank you. Isn't that great writing? That's Amanda Cortez. Let's do a shout out to Amanda Cortez because she was supposed to be here tonight, and
she's here in spirit.
She's here in spirit. She's taking care of our son Sixto, and he's in the midst of potty training, and she had to
sick and potty training.
Yeah, sick and potty training. So
that's like two straight.
What's interesting is that Eric was just hanging out in the alleyway. And so
well, I guess that's weird.
And we're like, do you need some food? Do you want to come in and get something to drink?
It's called dinner and snacks, and he's it's
very hospitable here in Ogden.
Do a little podcasting maybe.
And so for those of you that are familiar with the Monarch building, this is a wall that you're working on right now, that giant mural. You could tell us about the size in square inches. I'm sure you have it broken down into the inches or feet. But everybody is probably familiar with this wall. It is at the end of the driveway is the garage that leads into what's the name of our area over here?
Atrium?
The atrium, where a lot of the artist studios are. And so at the end of the gate is, or
by the way, I can
alley,
never think of that name. Oh, I'm pretty proud of myself for just thinking of
just now, the atrium, the sign that we're looking at, right. This is atrium.
Does it really?
Yeah. But at the end of the alleyway, the driveway is a massive gate. Right, that I think has mostly been closed for you while you've been working on the mural. So you are the current artist in residence with Ogden Contemporary Arts. So let's kind of start there, and then we'll jump around in your history just a little bit. And so this is I believe, Oka's second artist in residence. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I do know that I've been part of those conversations, those initial ones, and the list is quite long of people, sort of that wish list. And so congrats. When I found out you were coming, I was super excited for all the reasons but I was very, very excited. And so when did you find out you were in the running? How did that whole situation happen for you? As far as getting you out here.
Southwest Contemporary Magazine actually had nominated me to be in the running for the residency. So the residency, I think, has certain people nominated just to be put in the bag, in the hat to be picked.
Hat sounds better than bag.
Yeah. Put in the hole.
I just want to see these people carrying around a bag. They're just like, oh,
let's put in Eric in the sack.
Yeah. That's even worse. Okay.
So put in the hat.
And I was lucky enough to be picked amongst the candidates that were nominated. And I found out I was put in that running last summer, probably. And then I found it in the fall. And then here I am now in the spring for my 2-month run here in Ogden Contemporary.
And so you got the call last summer, so you did have some heads up. And was it really lined up? Kind of scheduled out what was going to happen when you got out here, or was there a little bit of natural evolution to obviously you've been having some trouble with the weather.
Yes.
Who'd have thought it? I guess in Utah we have a sense of spring being very questionable, and you're seeing all of that.
Yes, in its glory. I was told
I was told there would be sun. So,
so you want to do an outdoor mural?
Right. So that was my first question when Vanessa Castanoli, who runs Ogden Contemporary Arts, told me they want an outdoor mural in northern Utah. So, well, how's the weather there in springtime? Because outdoors painting in the snow, it is not very conducive to
I did not sign up for this.
I love where this is going. I want to see what she promised you. This is funny.
I said, no. Springtime's beautiful. All the snow's been melted by then. You're going to be good to go.
That's pretty true. Yeah. I mean, all the snow's melted down here in the alleyway.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
Except for our biggest, snowiest on record.
On record.
On record.
Yeah.
So I've been battling with the weather to get paint on that wall. It's just been a nonstop battle. And we're still dealing with it. I was painting today and it started raining, so I had to stop. So yeah, a lot of snow. I had lived in Chicago for almost a decade, and then I moved to Minneapolis, which is another level of winter, like Antarctic.
So
and then
can we complain about winters in Utah, or is Minnesota where it's at?
Oh, it's like living in Antarctica. It's Minneapolis or Minnesota in general is a totally different level.
Prepared you a little bit.
But I was hoping, I had always assumed that Utah was a much warmer, part of the Southwest. I understand we're still in the mountains here.
We're famous for our deserts.
But
we are a desert.
I was hoping in the springtime that it wouldn't be this much snow. Since I've been here for the past 2 months, every other day has been snowing.
So
it's just been
are we past your exit date already?
Yes, I should have left like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh, okay.
May 5th is the due date.
May 5th.
So that's already in a week from now.
Oh my God.
And we're halfway done with this mural. And in conjunction with the mural, I'm putting
Cinco
on
de
an
Mayo?
exhibition. Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. And your exhibition, which we haven't even talked about that, meaning I don't even know what's going into that.
The exhibition is going to be the mural.
We don't want to make any promises. This is what we're saying, yeah.
Oh,
now, because of the weather, does that mean that you've been working on things for the exhibition, or?
Well, yes and no. Because of the weather, it's been allowed me opportunity to work harder on the design of for the mural. Because I've had more, I didn't have to rush it, because this is a community-led mural. So the way I work is if I go to a different community I'm not a part of, I interact with that community and ask that community, and hopefully that community shares with me what they want, what they need to be visualized on this wall. So with the weather, I've been actually having more time to develop this design from and with the community. And in conjunction with that, I have been doing preps and all kinds of other studio work for the exhibitions. It's going to be in conjunction with the mural.
Right. So we're in Ogden, Utah, and you consult the locals for the mural. So did you get any fizz or let's say chicken, logo requests, Chick-fil-A logo requests that somehow make it into the mural? Fizz drinks.
You went to your local brand representative.
Yeah. I'm like, funny. how many of these do we get into this?
That's funny. We're not want to talk because we got a little Banyan logo, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
No, we don't. We don't.
But when you think of like some of our local trendy retail establishments, and everyone around here likes Chick-fil-A. They love the fizz drinks and stuff. And
this is all good points. Yeah. How's the feedback been?
Oh, it's been great. I haven't talked to many of the commercial.
Gotcha.
Been propositioned by any of the commercial.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing, but that's. Yeah.
But yes, I've like for instance, one of the things that we were doing for First Fridays, we had an open studio, and we acknowledged, or we had advertised what we were doing with the mural, and we asked for feedback. So we have, if you go into the studio right now, it's just filled. One of the walls is just filled with Post-it notes with everyone's ideas and thoughts and sometimes visuals of what they think should be on the wall. So it's been really great to not only see and read, but also to interact and dialogue and to talk with the community about the history of Ogden. I had no idea about the history of Ogden before I came here. I learned so much. And just
did you know where Ogden was?
I actually did, because I have a primo that lives an hour north of here. So I had an idea where Ogden was. I had never been here. And it just so happens my cousin's living right up north of here.
Did you recruit him? Has he been down to help?
You know what? We've missed each other for the past 2 months, and we've been beating our heads trying to get together. So we're going to meet hopefully soon.
Yes.
I
hope that happens. Any ideas? Any thoughts? Any suggestions? Any good suggestions? And I I guess I'm focusing a little bit more on youthful suggestions, maybe from kids that didn't make it to the final design, but were nonetheless great ideas. Maybe they wanted a spaceman or a SpongeBob or...
Oh, yes. So we had students come in and they wanted a big purple jellyfish. I said, oh, that's
money.
That's
good.
That's old school Ogden. I love that.
Hey, Ogden's known for his jellyfish, you know.
So that one didn't quite make the cut, but I thought it was a pretty good idea.
I'll tell you what, kids, they just think a little different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we need them.
Yeah. How old's your kid?
My kid, little Sixto's 2 years old, 2.5 probably.
2 years old. So 2 years old. So he's obviously got his set of...
He's already hand painting on walls.
Oh, yeah. So we actually had last week a community paint day when we asked all the community, all the public, whoever wanted to come and lend a hand to come paint on the wall. And it was a huge success. Half of the mural, the bottom portion, was all painted out, and little Sixto was there painting it up.
I saw Thane asked Vanessa like how it went, and she's like, it went so good. They had such a good turnout for the mural.
It was an excellent turnout.
The photos were unreal. I was expecting turnouts, and then there was it was exceptional turnout. Now, are you working with students from Youth Impact?
Yes.
Or was that initial, or is that throughout? What's the arrangement you have with them?
It began when we started on the wall. So they didn't do any of the pre-planning or the community engagement. They started when we started on the wall. So they helped us grid the wall. They helped start putting the first paints. We every Thursday, Friday they come out after school for 3 hours and they help us paint the wall. So
how important is that? I mean, I know when I was young, those moments would have been like I would have just eaten that up. But as far as young artists or even non-artists having opportunities like that, like does that inspire you?
It's super important, I think, for youth to be invited into these bigger communal projects. I think that's how I learned. When I was a teen, I was fortunate enough to work with a youth arts organization, and I apprenticed under a muralist, Joe Stevenson, and that's how I learned to paint big. And I've continued to do that. Most of my mural projects are with youth because it not only gives the next generation a heads up of like this is a possibility, like you can do this, like this is not an unreachable task. These are the tools and techniques to do it, and you can do it yourself. And it shows them that this is work. This is a job. You can be an artist and make a living as well. And that's how I learned. And it's also giving the youth something in their community that's made by them, something they can see every day that they walk past and say, I participated or I created that. I think it's impactful for youth.
Your situation, you had a mentor, Joe. What's Joe's last name?
Joe Stevenson.
Joe Stevenson. I have to look up Joe Stevenson. Is he still working?
Oh, he's still painting there in Albuquerque.
Oh, I got to check out his work. And so how old were you at that point?
Ooh, I was a teen. I was probably like 16 years old.
So 16 years old. And so what were you doing at that point? You said you were working a little bit smaller. And sometimes that's the big step of just trying to envision even larger canvases. And this obviously canvas like a wall is even bigger than that. But mentally, there's sometimes that block of getting from small to big, right? And so what were you painting on before that? Were you a sketchbook person? Were you finding walls that you shouldn't have been painting on?
No, it was just small sketchbooks. It was just small drawings. I'd always been drawing since I was small. I always had a bunch of sketchbooks. Eventually, in high school, I started dabbling on canvas in art class. But it wasn't until I got when I started working with Working Classroom, the name of the organization that works with youth. That's when I first dabbled on painting on something large scale or on a wall for that matter. So it had a huge impact.
Was that daunting, the idea of that, or were you excited about the opportunity, or what was your first reaction kind of being part of a big piece?
It's exciting. It's exciting that to not only be a part of something grand in scale, but to constantly see it in the neighborhood. Like you drive past on your way to wherever and you say, oh, it's still there. Like after all these years, this public work is still is still vibrant and it's still having an impact. It's still beautifying the city. It makes you feel proud.
This makes me think of something. So Brandon and I are both on Ogden City's Arts Advisory Committee, and Brandon feels very strong about never decommissioning any public work ever, right? Just keep.
There's a caveat to that, but yeah,
until it just literally just kind of falls.
But the murals, I say leave in place forever, and Todd disagrees.
Well, I think that there's a time and a place where it's just the upkeep should be either part of the initial conversation with the artist, or there should be some sort of exit plan, or in the case of this situation, some decision making, sometimes has to be made by a group like ours. And so, what are your thoughts on sort of that ephemeral nature of murals or public art in general?
That's
we're getting deep now.
You might this might be a bigger conversation that I don't know if I'm prepared to have. Like if we're talking about like public art, should it come down, like controversial figures, or if we're just talking about does the mural has it outlasted its time? I think it could be a couple of those, yes. Okay. And so that's my thought would be weather. We live in a very dynamic weather. Right. It's very, very hot or wet, or so sometimes that does enter into the conversation. It's just the sheer, it fades away, chips away, like that type of situation, or art that maybe has outlasted its time. The message has sort of evolved or changed. Yeah, so I don't think people realize, or even muralists sometimes, they don't even think of their murals as being ephemeral, but they're ephemeral. You paint on a building, the building changes owners, that mural could be gone. It's out in the public, so anyone can look at it, but also anyone could touch it and demolish it if they want to. That's also deface it, and like you said, with the weather, of course, you can't stop from the paint chipping off. You can't stop from the sun eating the colors away. These are ephemeral works. They're not going to last forever, especially if they're outdoors. There can be restorations. There can be if the mural's super important to the community. I wholeheartedly support them. Either asking the muralist to come back and revive the mural that's decaying, or to have someone else maybe revamp it. And I guess I've seen in my experience, once a mural, like you're saying, maybe it's outlasted its time, maybe it's faded, and maybe people don't recognize it anymore. Maybe the wall's crumbling. Maybe it's and I've seen newer generation of muralists ask the previous artist, the previous muralist, to say, "Hey, can I have this wall?" Like out of respect, can I have this wall? That's great. Yeah. Your mural was great for its time. It's no longer there anymore. If you don't want to revive it, can I have the wall and make something new? So I've seen that happen, and then I've seen the other dark side. Now this is the perfect example of what we're talking about. In Santa Fe, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, there is a old Chicano mural in the heart of Santa Fe, in the museum district in the old town, and the new contemporary art wing of the New Mexican Museum of Art is if it hasn't already happened, it's happening. They're destroying this mural because they need a new art wing for the contemporary art of New Mexico, because they want to destroy this old. And the mural is still good. It's not falling apart or anything. It's still there, but they want to destroy it to bring culture to New Mexico. They want to destroy something. Well, that's interesting, and it's worse if the mural itself was still in good shape. That's one thing, but my argument was there's a reason you're painting what you're painting out here today in 2023. And then 30 years from now, when it's faded and cracked and stuff, and we look at it and someone wants to repaint it, are we going to lose those reasons that you painted what you painted? Yeah, we got pictures, we have ways to look back on it, but it's gone from the public eye. And once we cover it up, it's gone. Right. So whatever
intentions you had behind what you're doing today, in 20, 30 years from now, will we remember those, or do we just cover them up and move on?
Well, that's the question, right? Some of these murals are time capsules, and they're talking about what was happening at that time, at that place. So the mural we're creating right now is talking about the destruction of our environment and what's happening right now with the lake. And 30 years from now, hopefully something has been done about this environmental disaster that's happening here in the Salt Lake. And maybe the mural doesn't make sense anymore because it's revived. Maybe we don't need to talk about.
Maybe the mural is the reason it's revived.
but like you're saying, you know, the mural doesn't make sense anymore because the lake has revived. There's no more catastrophe happening. So maybe the content is irrelevant, and maybe there should be a new design, a new mural.
Or like you said, it's a nice flashback to how did we get this, and we don't repeat it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
well, there's a lesson there. I hate repeating. Or I hate deleting lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's easy in the environment that we have here in Utah, is that some of this will probably, to some degree, a little cyclical, right? Like meaning that let's hope we have like this amazing year where we have all this moisture. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that moisture ends up in a better place, like in a lake or in a river or somewhere, you know, and then, heaven forbid, we have another drought, and it sort of, you know, kind of
which will happen. Itself. So it's just, I think it's more about water management. This is a different subject that we in Utah could probably talk about forever. But I'm glad you're bringing into the mural itself here, which is great. So how did you find out about what we're doing here in Utah with this Great Salt Lake, and enough to incorporate it into the mural that you're putting on the Monarch building?
Well, again, it's about community engagement. Mm-hmm. Not only have people left Post-it notes about, you know, the mountains, the lake, the environment, but I went out and saw for myself. I went to Antelope Lake and saw the receding shores. Like, oh, it's like dramatic. It's dramatic how much has been lost already. And then I'm constantly listening to NPR, and so I'm always interested in listening to local news. So on NPR and the local Utah news, always talking about the environmental impact. There was a lot of different segments. They were talking about what's happening and how devastating it is to, you know, to the whole region around the Salt Lake. Like you were explaining earlier, it's a bowl surrounded by mountains, and all of that toxic air, all that pollution is just sitting there. It can't escape.
Yeah, and even outside of those reasons, even if you just look at a sheer, like we rely on the Great Salt Lake for this amazing snow that we have to ski in each year, right? And so this lake effect snow, right, we kind of hear about, and this powder that we have, you know, it's very unique. And so that would theoretically change that dynamic, and that trickles into a whole other sort of industry, you know, as well. And so it's definitely significant. And so you hit on that in those initial discussions, I'm guessing.
Well, I'd love to research the places where I'm going to be. I love history. I'm all my work is either, it's both. It's two things. Two things are constant in my work. It's history and politics. And whenever I go to new places, do new projects, I'm constantly reading or listening and researching the local history. What's here? What was here? It's super important to know your history. If you don't know your history, you can't understand the present, and from then you can't move forward.
We love history. I love history too. Yeah, and it definitely finds a place in the work that you do. And so when you're not doing murals, what's your jam? So you do illustrations. You have a cartoon that you do as a somewhat regularly. How's that released?
El Machete Illustrated is my political cartoon series that I try to release often now. With a two-year-old, it gets less and less and less. But I used to do a weekly.
You know, he might give you some content here.
Well, I've actually started a new series called Tales from the Crib, which talks about all the nightmares that I'm having with. No, I shouldn't say nightmares, but they're true stories of horror of having a child.
It's true though. I mean, it's love and horror all wrapped in a nice little bow.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, he's very inspiring. That's for sure.
That's funny. And so
when I'm not doing political cartoons, I'm also printmaking.
Yes.
I'm also making sculptures and installations. I'm also collaborating with game makers. Like in the new exhibition, we're gonna be introducing 2 new video games that I've been collaborating with Rafael Fajardo out of Denver and Plugged In Studio out of Chicago, who are both game designers who make socially conscious video games. So we're gonna debut those in the gallery space as well. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm teaching. I think that's where that's the other half of my practice, because all my art eventually is to bring dialogue and to bring awareness of what is happening or what has happened. So even the things that I'm creating, the objects I'm creating, they're teaching tools. So if I'm not in the classroom blabbing at students, then I'm making the tools to be blabbed at by the teachers or other people, right? What
are the classes you teach?
Oh, different things. I've taught for a long time at the National Museum of Mexican Art there in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
In the education department, and they would send me out to do workshops about Mexican and Chicano history and art workshops, painting murals or creating mosaics, all kinds of different things. Printmaking,
yeah. And so, did you have a sense, because I'm trying to think of sort of even my own trajectory, doing art, and my brother went in the direction of pretty quickly that he wanted to teach, right? So he lives on the East Coast and he teaches, and I didn't want to necessarily do that, right? I didn't see myself necessarily in that path. And then of course I ended up working in a university and teaching some classes and stuff. But did you know you wanted to teach at a younger age? Is that something that came later?
No, I'd never had the idea that I would be teaching or be a teacher. When I graduated from school, I had this crazy idea, this idealistic idea that I would be in the studio making art.
100% all the time and getting paid for it.
Yeah. Which is an absurd kind of idea if you really think about it. So,
all the student loans.
Yeah, exactly. So I luckily enough, I was very fortunate. I got a job in the education department at the National Museum of Mexican Art after I graduated, and I jumped right in. That's how I fell into being a teacher, a teaching artist, and I finally came to the conclusion. I finally came to the realization that I've always been teaching, but in a different format, maybe through my objects. But I understood that the main purpose of those objects were for teaching. They're the tools again. So I think it finally I finally had the realization through working within that museum. And I finally felt comfortable, and I finally was able to learn so much by all the teaching artists that were working there that I happened to be with, which were tremendous educators and showed me so much. I owe a lot to them for giving me those experiences. I
read that you have sort of a sense of balance right now. At least you put off this vibe between family and work and teaching and home. And I also know from the little bits that you and I have chatted about that you and your family are a little bit of a gypsy as well, and so that is like that's a structure that not everybody can relate and all right, could really do for as long as you've necessarily been able to do it. Mm-hmm. Because not so long ago you had a year-long residency, is that right?
Right.
And that was in
Roswell, New Mexico.
Roswell, New Mexico.
Rad.
How cool is that? That's
was it cool or
it was cool.
Roswell?
It was great. The town is super. It's about maybe similar size to Ogden, but Ogden has much more going on.
Much more going on.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Well, we can't talk about the stuff going on in Roswell.
Well, it's top secret, right?
Yeah.
It's hush hush.
It's so secret that it's boring there.
For everyone back in the rare residence.
In Roswell, we have a huge Roswell audience.
I guarantee you, they just don't talk about it. Yeah.
The residency there. No, this is. I'm not kidding about this. The residency was unbelievable. It's a year-long residency.
That alone is awesome.
They put you up for a year. Yeah. They give you a house with a giant, big ass studio attached to it. It's its own little compound on the outskirts of the town. So it's basically a little compound of artists of like 6 houses that are together, and they give you a stipend. They let you bring your families, which is super rare. There's not many residencies that let you bring a whole family. Like this one.
Yeah, yeah. When I found out Vanessa was part of her play, and obviously she has a family, and it was just important to her that was an option. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So I didn't have to leave my family for a year. You know, they came with me. So it was a tremendous opportunity. And then they give you a solo show at the end, and then they promote your work tremendously. So it was a tremendous year-long experience. And then you get to say you lived in Roswell for a year, right? The home of the 1947 crash landing.
Yes, Area 51, right? All that good stuff. You can check that off the bucket list.
Any weird vibes? We were like, yeah, I could tell. I see why they talk about this place.
This is a true story. The first weeks we were there.
I like you clarified for the first time in our conversation that this part right now is the true story.
Everything else was we were just picking it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys pick and choose over the last half hour. So yeah, that's funny.
We were there like the second week. Larry Bob Phillips is the director there, and he texts everyone on the compound's on a text thread.
I just love that he's got 3 first names.
Larry Bob Phillips.
Larry Bob Phillips. He's a great guy. He texts everyone. And he says, what does he say? The western sky. Look up in the western sky. 5 o'clock, and everyone comes out of their houses, and everyone looks up, and there's a silver orb floating in the sky.
What?
And it wasn't moving or anything. It wasn't like in outer space. It was like right below the clouds. It was right
like for real,
right towards like dusk.
Yeah.
And we were like, "What is that? What is that? That is unreal. What is like a silver orb in the sky?"
Yeah, this is right when I would be saying, nope. Nope. this movie, nope. But that was the response. Nope.
Did you see that, by the way?
Yeah, it was trippy.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was pretty trippy. Okay. But what you can't tease us. What else?
The next day in the Roswell Recorder, in the Roswell, I don't know whether the
newspaper,
the Roswell newspaper, not aliens.
That's the headline.
Weather balloon.
Oh,
everything's a weather balloon.
They've been using the damn weather balloon.
I know.
Answer for the past.
Like, how much do we need to know about? I mean,
like the Air Force doesn't have no modern technology. They have to use a balloon. They have drones now. They have unpiloted aircraft. They're using balloons still.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like you would recognize a balloon. Like even though the balloons are enormous,
it's now a weather orb.
Weather orbs. Yeah. Yes, you call them what you will.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you had that experience.
But we have to collect all this data on weather because we can't go outside and just like, it's a little cold out or whatever.
There's satellites now. There's other ways to get this information. I'm glad you had that experience. Is there a vibe of Aliens still popular? I remember this was. This is
the whole town is consumed by the tourism of aliens. So
well, how did you work it into your art down there?
Well, because there was so much aliens in the aura of the atmosphere of Roswell, I had to
literally
I had to create work about aliens. But I was going to take the idea with a twist. We're going to use that official term, our official immigration system uses the term alien, right? But what if we put that term back in 1492? Then we can say that Christopher Columbus is an alien. Then we can say that there was alien abductions. There was an alien invasion. So that's the twist that I was taking with this term. I was investigating historical, real life aliens.
Yeah,
and like Hernan Cortez and Kit Carson. You know, all these guys that are not from here. They're aliens to this territory.
Conquistador. Is that the right word?
Yeah,
was an illegal alien essentially.
The Pilgrims. You know, they're all aliens. They're all aliens, and even the terms that they were using at that time. We are from the old world versus the new world. Like if they're separate planets or something, right? So there's this sci-fi element within this within colonialism that talks about discovery. The frontier.
Okay, wait. This is a good question. Should we ask it? Should we be excited about that change? So aliens come from outer space to actually invade the U.S. Is this a good change, or does it lead to inevitable problems? Same as the old world conquistadors discovering new worlds. Is it good or bad?
Well, if we look historically, it's always been bad. You know, the people with the advanced technology come to another world.
If they would abduct
consume
and probe, then I would say that's a bad.
That's good, right?
Well, it depends on what trailer you live in. Yeah,
Okay.
I think historically, probably more on the.
I was just curious. Just throwing it out there as a film. That's a debate. It's a question that's beyond this podcast.
Now, as somebody who is a fan, not obsessed, but a fan of sci-fi, fantasy, all that type of stuff, like there is that idea. I'm still hopeful of this idea of this benevolent alien, right?
Which, by the way, you know what I just
collectively,
saw?
you know, we put our brains together and
that would be
come
nice.
up with this.
But I just watched. I'm a little behind on my movies. Okay, and pop culture. Todd knows he's gonna murder me on this. But I just saw
Did you see Star Wars for the first time?
No, yeah, barely ahead of that.
Yeah.
Transformers. The
Okay.
first one. So
that was the only really good, decent one. Was that first one?
Was the first one? Okay.
And the cartoon in the
But
80s.
it started, and I was like, "This is really good." And they sold it as that they were aliens, right? That the transform, and I was like, they're Autobots, but they're from another
because their planet was being destroyed, like Superman.
Yes, yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm buying what you're selling here. And then I watched it, and it was good.
They turned into cool cars.
Yeah, they turned it. Bumblebee was cool, you know, whatever.
Yeah, but then half of them were bad.
Yeah,
but they mostly just focused.
And then there was Megan Fox, and then game over.
Yeah, there was that too.
Yeah,
that was the reminder that Michael Bay made that movie.
Michael Bay, were they dating or something?
Oh God, no.
Oh,
like
okay.
Grandpa.
Oh, was
grandkid
he?
age.
Okay. Right. But then who's the guy? Because the kid was super famous.
That was Shia LaBeouf.
Shia. Yeah.
Before he went through his artistic transformation.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, I think he's found himself a couple times. Since then. He might be in a better place now. But
he was really young in that first one.
Yeah, he was really, really young. That's funny you saw
Speaking of Space Invaders, so this is how we get to.
But that's the idea that I have, particularly with like a Star Trek, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the idea of this. You know, the galaxies
E.T.?
come together. E.T. and obviously we weren't really good to him. They're you know,
we were kind of
had to
assholes
sneak
to
away.
E.T., huh?
Yeah, we were assholes.
Yeah.
So that's historically that could happen as well.
Yeah,
that's a good observation. But that comes back to your love, your passion for history, and finding new ways of looking at situations that are around you.
Right. So let's investigate historically about aliens, and you know it's very ironic and hypocritical right now, where there's this this attitude that we're seeing people cross the Mexico-United States border, and they're speaking indigenous languages. They're not just speaking Spanish, and then we're calling these people aliens. Like, who are we to call these people aliens? These are people from the Americas. I just think it's very absurd.
My best friend, April's sister, just got back from a week in...
My sister, April.
Yeah. Got back from a week in Oaxaca. She was down in Oaxaca for a week. And
which looked amazing.
Yeah, I think she had a really good time. She's a bartender, so it was a mezcal kind of trip. You know? So she was able to plant and, you know, basically learn the process, you know, in the traditional sense.
She roped wild mezcal. What is the
the whole other story?
Yeah.
But she did. She was just telling me just the other day that there was, and I could have been the owners of this mezcal operation were speaking and I'm so bad, I couldn't remember the name that she was speaking, but essentially another dying language, you know, and the idea of dying languages or I guess dead languages are very fascinating to me.
Where was is that state in the middle or southern part of Mexico? Where is that? Where she was?
Oaxaca. She was in the central part.
Central.
Yeah.
And so that particular, just enlighten me, area has a dying language. Is that?
Well, there's so many different indigenous languages, not only here in the United States, but in Mexico. Spanish may be the dominant, but there's so many indigenous languages that are still spoken, and some are not necessarily dying. They're still very fluent in their indigenous language. So there's just so many.
So I just before we got to close things out, because this has been great, but this has gone by really fast.
Please hang for another hour.
No, yeah, please, we'll just hang for another hour. But I want to touch on, you're a full-time artist, correct? Like you make your living as an artist.
Correct.
And a teacher, like art.
And a teacher. So And you went to school and was step one, and then you became sort of a teacher, step two. But then how did you become a full-time artist?
Eventually, from working at the museum, I started getting more and more gigs, and I started getting different residencies, and I couldn't.
So if you're listening, residencies is a good.
That's a good step.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people don't know what a residency is a specific time and place where they support you as an artist to do your work. And I got a residency during the same time I was working full time at the National Museum of Mexican Art, and I couldn't do both at once. So I asked my supervisor, I said, I want to go part-time. I can't do full-time anymore. I want to spend more time making. Because prior to that, I would work a full-time gig at the museum, then I would go home and stay up till 1 o'clock in the studio trying to make my art. So I was juggling. This is
the artist life right here.
I was juggling two things, trying to make money and doing something I love there in the education department, but also doing something else I loved off hours that I needed, and I felt that I needed to pursue and still continue. So when I reached a point where the studio time became more important to me or more involved, I had to cut down on the museum teaching time, and I eventually, from part time, I eventually said I don't have any more capacity, and I need to put all my time.
But you had saved so much from the enormous amount of money you were making as a teacher that this was an easy transition, correct?
No, it's a very scary transition.
Yeah.
It's a very scary transition that you're gonna start doing art just as your main source of income. And if you talk to Amanda, it's scary for the whole family to be that transition, and that puts a lot of pressure on your partner too, because she's now the breadwinner. Mm-hmm. Or the main source of the constant or continuous flow of income versus me, it comes in flows. Mm-hmm. So, and at that point, and it's been, I guess, 4 or 5 years now that I've done the studio strictly as an income, and then teaching gigs in between. I'm always teaching gigs, small little stints in between, going to lecturing at different institutions. So I've been able to do it thus far.
Would you say a sugar mama is a financial plan?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's definitely
I'm just throwing it out there. It's support. It's support. But you got to have the support, because if she didn't love you and support you and see you for what you can do and accomplish and respect that your work makes a difference, then it wouldn't work.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And what you do inspires her every day.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I hope so too. But yeah.
I'm speaking for her right now. Just meaning that trade is just anyway. It inspires me. The relationship that you two have inspires me.
Which she was supposed to be here today. We talked about.
I
this,
know
she couldn't make it.
Yes,
but
Amanda, you were missed. You are greatly missed, and our conversation continues.
We miss you.
I have to do one quick little shout out. So Amanda works currently with the group called Springboard for the Arts. Right. It's based out of Minneapolis.
Right. St. Paul.
St. Paul. Sorry about that. And so amongst the amazing things that Springboard for the Arts does is works with professional development for artists. So,
that'd be fascinating to talk to her.
Yeah. It would have been perfect to have her here.
And so with the job that I have down with the Salt Lake City Arts Council, I have some funds that I'm trying to put towards professionalization, essentially that exactly what she does. And so that started the conversation with her, and just the small world that she happened to be in town.
Right.
And so I'm actually developing, fingers crossed, maybe some sort of.
So Eric, does she give you, pro tips?
So that I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
It's not only having a sugar mama, but it's also having an intellectually sophisticated, a very astute person with capabilities of writing and numbers and and all of that.
Yeah.
Baked into a partner for an artist, right?
Yeah. Choose your partner wisely.
How do I write? I hate writing. I can't write. My primary
and grants are writing and
artist statements.
Bios,
all
things
of that
matter.
like people don't realize how much writing and other things go into being an artist, right? You have to do all these, you have to wear all these other hats. So if you have someone else to help you out, you know, to at least run through your spelling, you know, that's a huge, it's a huge.
But this is an angle I hadn't even considered. This is wonderful.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, because you're going to think about this when you're dating. Like, how good of a writer are you? You know,
these are just maybe some of those questions to ask on that first.
You know, you never know. Right? So yeah.
So I'm working with community artists, really, you know, and that's basically the one thing that's sometimes missing is that they've got the skill set and they've got the drive there, but it's all of these other things you're talking about, right? That you just need to learn to make it go at it, or you marry into it. This is the answer right there. Yeah. And then through osmosis,
all this
pick
time,
up all of it as it is. Yeah, exactly, through that. So I have to ask one other question. Because you are arts-based right now exclusively, what was the last purely non-art job that you had?
Oh, yeah, good question.
So as we get to know you a little bit, that'll little insight. Or how far back do we have to go for that?
Oh, the purely non-art.
Like you can't even somehow put a spin that it's art related on it.
Yeah, did you work? Did you work in retail or fast food?
I was a busboy during high school.
Yeah.
I went to the military. I don't think that's very art related.
I
Yeah, because you worked with veterans. Yeah, veterans.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a 4.5-year stint in the Air Force, and I had Uncle Sam pay for my undergrad.
That's really nice of him.
Very nice.
That was a nice trade as well. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say that would apply. That would answer that question entirely. Yeah. So what do we got to look forward to for the opening of your show, which is, I don't want to say, just around the corner.
May 5th.
It's pretty close.
It's in a week.
Just so you know, we're going to have a big concert out here
in celebration
of the mural,
of the unfinished mural.
It'll be finished. It'll have a little snow on it, still,
right?
I think.
So it's going to be a jam-packed night because they're going to have 2 unveilings, right? You're going to have the unveiling of the mural. We're also going to have you guys there live. With
the music will be celebrating the art. Yes, for sure.
And then in the gallery space, we're going to have the exhibition dealing with these alien themes as well.
That's the work that we're mostly.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing
Are you using all the space?
All of it. We're going to have 2 giant projections of the 2 video games. You're going to play Space Invaders that's been redesigned for colonial icons have been placed in place of the arcade classic Aliens. And then the other side, we're going to have a video game that deals with veterans coming home. You know, it's a reaction towards the first-person shooter game that glorifies war. Well, what happens when veterans actually come back from war? How do they navigate life? So we're going to see how that.
2 thoughtful video games.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Now, when artists develop apps like this or games like this, do they ever get out of the gallery?
Yeah. So the one that Plugged In designed about the veteran experience is specifically made for educators or whoever to download and for them to play and be educated about what it means to be in the military and what it means to have to come back and deal with very tragic issues.
Man, the irony in that is I have a brother-in-law who is Top Gun was famous, and so he's the backseat driver. So he'd been Goose in the original. So he's like in the Navy, right? And I'm like, oh my God, he's a crazy kid. I said, how the hell did you even get this job, right? And he said, video game.
Oh, yeah.
Video game. Like, he's a hell of a good gamer. And so he's the weapons guy. So he can push all the buttons and do all the things. And
the military is heavily invested in gaming right now. Like Call of Duty, these are sponsored by the United States Army. And all these new so there's gaming contests where teens go and they play against each other for like big time money. They're sponsored by the military. These
recruiters
are itching or biting their teeth to talk to these young youth because you know what, you know how to play this video game. Well, let's just put you in the drone pilot seat here, and you could fly a drone and bomb Afghanistan from the other side of the world.
I'm telling you, kids, if you have any questions out there, just see all the 80s movies. This is The Last Starfighter. Anybody remembers this movie, The Last Starfighter?
True, that's an amazing movie.
This was 1985, 84, something like that.
Which that was
That was the arcade.
Goose. What's his name? Oh, who was the star in that?
I don't remember that actor. That's something I don't know off the top of my head. But I'll tell you what, that is exactly what that was.
Yeah.
But that was also early video games.
So my son is really into watching the YouTube videos of people playing Grand Theft Auto.
That's wild.
We don't have it yet. He's not playing it yet, but he's watching the YouTube videos of people playing Grand Theft Auto. I can't wait to see what he does when he grows up.
Did Grand Theft ever clean up its actors? It's still just awful.
So as far as I can tell on the YouTube videos, you just walk in and steal cars.
Birds.
This is a great idea.
Is that how you get your car?
No problem. But that's how you get your car.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And he's really into it. And I'm like, this is, I don't know where this is going.
You throw people out of your car. You could stop and beat
The Last Starfighter. Is that what that was?
The Last Starfighter. That was one of my favorites. In fact, I wonder if they ever remade that. I don't.
1984.
84. Head of the curve. Not sponsored by the military probably at that point, unless you dig a little deeper.
Right.
Yeah. Which is what you do. That's what you got to do. You got to sort of find that information just under the surface.
Alex Rogan conquers the.
That's the name of the character.
Oh, that was the name of the character. Okay.
Yeah.
Director was Nick Castle. Where do I find?
What's that actor's name?
Lance Guest. Boy, top cast, by the way. Lance Guest.
I don't remember what they did after.
Kay Cooter, Dan Hurley, Barbara Boston. I don't know any of these. None of these people. Vernon Washington. Robert Preston, Dan Mason, Catherine Mary Stewart. She was a big deal for a while. Catherine Mary Stewart, you know.
Okay.
Everybody, I don't know any of these people. Let's see what else.
Well, anyway, that's one of our movie suggestions for this episode is The Last Starfighter, or any of the other ones that we mentioned.
Catherine Mary Stewart was in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, Peter Pan and Wendy.
Oh.
So she's in a lot of stuff.
I'll have to look her up. Well, we've taken too much of your time. Thank you so much for finding time for us. Ogden has been super lucky to have you. We're super lucky to have you on the show. I cannot wait till May 5th. May 5th.
Next Friday.
Yeah. I leave the next day on the 6th.
Where are you going?
I'm going to go to American or Arts Curators Conference in New York.
Oh, that's right.
For about 4 days. And then I'm going to take the train down and visit my
Dude, that's so bougie. That is so. How much wine are you going to drink?
This train? This is probably more of like this is Amtrak. This is
I meant like the convention.
Oh, that might be bougie. Yeah. We'll have to see.
Okay.
Yeah. This will be my first sort of with that conference group.
Yeah.
And then visit the niece that lives in outside of Baltimore. So,
which is cool.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that. But I'm happy that everything is the day before, so I'll catch up.
Is that your arts news, by the way?
Yes, I will be out in town on May 6th, which is a Saturday through a Sunday. Will I make note of the whole thing? Probably. Yeah. Something will come up and you can look it up. I think my arts news is all of this pop culture that we've peppered throughout this show.
That's true.
I've enjoyed every second of it.
My adventure news, I have none, although I did run sound for the Celtic Beat celebration at the Ogden Nature Center this last Saturday. And that was so much fun. The girls, it even rained like a little bit on the dancers while it was raining. And then we have some chalk or rosin on the wood, you know, and they dip their shoes onto the rosin first before they go out there. Well, I wish. So I was running audio. I couldn't take any photos. So yeah, I was running audio, but it was probably the biggest. It was the biggest crowd we have ever seen there at the Ogden Nature Center for Earth Days, celebrating Earth Days, gathered around the Celtic Beat dancers. It was a lot of fun. So my daughter's one of the Celtic Beat dancers. Those girls work really hard year round, and they only perform a couple times a year. So if you get a chance to see them, Earth Days is one of the opportunities to see that. And those who were there were excited, and they got good applause. And the girls, I mean, the bigger the crowd, the more engaged, the better the girls dance. And so it was a lot of fun.
100%. Yeah. Ogden Nature Center, that's another one of our, what a great place. That's a really good operation.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it.
It was good. Okay. Anything else? You good, Todd?
I am good. Okay. Let's go.
I'll close this out. Thanks to Banyan One. That's this 1960 Aristocrat studio right here. Trailer. Vintage.
Yeah, let's
trailer. I mean, it looks like we're outside camping. We're not. We're inside the Monarch building right now. By the way, mention this podcast and save on booking. So you could book a corporate event here during the week, or this is unique. I'm assuming unique to Ogden and in Utah in particular. But if you book a wedding here on Sundays, you get a free mimosa bar.
Ah.
What? What?
Is that here?
Here at the Monarch. Yeah. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you book a wedding, because weddings on Sundays are
Yeah.
So if you book a wedding here at the Monarch, you get a free mimosa bar. They just throw it in. Tell them you heard that on the podcast and make sure they do it. But it's true. They actually do it. So listen and subscribe to Ogden Arts and Adventure on YouTube. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, thebanyancollective.com. That's the blog with all the links and everything. Eric, where can we see your work?
EricJGarcia.com.
Okay.
Or on Instagram, you could look up El Machete Illustrated.
Spell that.
ElMacheTEillustrated.
That was pretty good, though. That was pretty good.
You asked someone who can spell. How to spell.
Where's the man that she would have spelled that for you?
Like for everyone, you have to edit that.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. I told you before the show, everything stays in because we screw up all the time. So
well, I think you saw that.
Listen, if you want to be on the show, we do have an Instagram. DM us on Instagram at Ogden Adventure. We will leave you this podcast with our outdoor jukebox from a van sessions or recent van sessions that we have. We're releasing this week all of the Love Juliet van sessions. This is Forever Summer. This is the first track we released from her set, and we will see you on the next Ogden Arts and Adventure Show.
Thank you, guys.
It's a song called Forever Summer. My eyes in the sky, they're one and the same. They both cry and cry. My tears in the rains are flooding these empty streets in vain. I stay at a cafe to watch the storm go by. Inside I wait at a table for two. Will the sky ever blue again? Oh, I wanna feel the sunshine on my skin. Gonna let it in. Oh, I split the clouds, but I drowned as the rains came flooding in. Blue sky, will you come again soon? Sunshine, I'm missing you. Sunshine, I'm missing you. My heart and the sea, oh, they're one and the same. They're both so deep. My arc got swept away, but I know that Venice didn't sink in a day. I stay at a cafe to watch the storm go by. Each night I pray at the altar for you. Will the sky ever blue again? Tell me when, 'cause I wanna feel the sunshine on my skin. Gonna let it in. Oh, I split the clouds, but I drowned as the rains came flooding in. Blue sky, will you come again soon? Oh, sunshine, I've been missing you. Sunshine, I'm missing you. Put on my Daisy Dukes, crop top bathing suit. I heard it on the news, they said you're coming through. Ring on my toe, no shoes, popsicle cherry blue. And it tastes like June, oh, it tastes like you. I tried to dance in the rain, it wasn't the same. I took lemons and I made lemonade. I'll drink it while I wait at a cafe to watch the storm go by. Inside I stay. I hope and I'll pray someday we'll meet again, old friend, 'cause I wanna feel the sunshine on my skin. Gonna let it in. Oh, I split the clouds, but I drowned as the rains came flooding in. Blue sky, will you come again soon? Oh, sunshine, I've been missing you. Sunshine, I'm missing you.